Gen Z has a gooning epidemic. And gooning originally meant to be someone's crony, to be someone's like subordinate, and now it means to thrive from lustful activities. And I feel that my generation, Gen Z, is starting to use humor, for us to cover our feelings of disdain and disgust for ourselves, and this is sort of shield for how we feel about ourselves. That we're very self-deprecating generation now, and I'm quite embarrassed to say this, but I'm currently struggling with this. I've been struggling with this since I was young. I found it about explicit content when I was around 8 years old, and I found this throughout a magazine that I saw, and and now I'm 18, a decade later, and I still struggle to stop myself from gooning. I try to block sites. I try to limit internet usage. This is one of the reasons why I read, and I try to read the Bible so I can understand these kind of things and better myself. But you know, I realized over the years that lust is something like a snowball. It starts small, but you continue to roll it, and as you roll it, your desires expand. You change from what you watch, and the more you do this, the more it builds, builds, and builds until soon enough, it starts rolling by itself, and it's impossible, and it feels impossible to stop. And I've genuinely tried so many times. I've tried it more times than I can count, and they all end in failure. And I saw a segment from the Bible that said that lust is something that Almighty Being, God, I'm not quite religious, but I can understand what people's, understanding of God is. But this being of, all powerful, is saying that this desire that we humans have, this innate desire, this carnal desire, is something that we must flee from. That it's not something that we can merely fight against like greed. You must flee from it. This is something that not even the most strongest entity of human imagination can stop. And I genuinely think that speaks volumes for how long our struggle against lust, as men and women, both genders, has gone on for thousands of years. And lust, gooning isn't something that pertains to only men. This also pertains to women. I've seen many things, especially online, when I used to use TikTok occasionally and Instagram, that many people would women would post books that held explicit content. I believe this is called book talk or something like that. And they'll talk about books like one of them I believe was 50 Shades of Grey, if I'm correct. And women obviously advocate for equality, and they want to be treated the same way as us men, and have the rights and same like that. And I understand that, and I think that's something that we should definitely have. But they'll talk about these books, and their content is so vulgar that it makes me question, like, do they really want this? Because 50 Shades of Grey, as I mentioned before, is basically, from what I understand, is about a man, a very powerful man. This man is rich, he has money. He's a very muscular built kind of man, and he basically has his way with this extremely submissive woman. And I think that's quite interesting that women will advocate for all these things, such as equality, when they don't want to be seen as less than men and submissive, and that many of them are independent. I can understand where they're coming from, but then some of these books like these are some of the top grossing books made and bought by women. There's this game called Live in Deep Space where these men are called predators, and basically their carnal instincts are held back by these women who attend to them sexually. And this is also one of the most top grossing games, mobile games especially. And it's quite crazy because you see occasionally the details, some of these there's interactive cutscenes, and these are some of the most high quality things I've ever seen in my life. As someone who's playing games since I was maybe 5 years old, it's that's insane. you know I wouldn't have expected this, but I guess both genders suffer from this, from lust, and this is something that we genuinely are starting to understand as become the norm. I would feel that lust something that we should be fighting against and advocating against, but I feel that the generations, Gen Z, has started to given up and sort of just understand that that all these avenues of media, social media, video games, even books, some of the oldest forms of entertainment, and are used for us humans to portray our lust that we feel in our heart. And many people believe that their gooning will stop once they have a partner, but the truth is the majority of people don't have the willpower to hold back, and This is sadly only heightened by our daily usage, and lust literally destroys the reward system in your brain. You know, you search for vanilla things once you start, and then this compounds to more specific things that your brain will literally see every day for who knows how long. And this will literally fry your brain, and this will raise the dopamine receptors in your brain to insane levels that, you know, once you go to a normal day and you start to realize that, this has become an issue, I want to stop this, and you stop, trying to go, and you'll realize that you'll become like more irritated, you'll become more anxious because this addiction is rolling over you, and but you've been doing this action for so long that now that you aren't able to do it, and it's something that humans will always feel, this carnal desire that you feel irritated, and it's very destructive, and like I said before, lust isn't something that you can run from, and if you do try to run from it, it'll be destructive. And I think that, even though lust is something that's quite terrible for humans, that if many people aren't able to satisfy themselves, many bad things could happen. I think it's something that we must accept. And while I have said before that, lust is something that you can run from, I myself have tried to, try to be extremely busy with this YouTube or, personal finance, things that I find hobbies in, or, trying to work out again. I haven't done them in quite a while. But I realized that being busy will help you, you know, you'll come home from work, and you'll come home from work, going to the gym, and you'll be doing all these things, but you're so busy that you didn't even have time for yourself, and like I said before, straight willpower won't be able to stop. If you're at home, if you work at home, and you're home by yourself, and you have this computer or you have this phone, some sort of technology that allows you to browse the internet and look for adult content, at a moment's touch, what's stopping you from doing that? And it doesn't matter who or what man or woman you are. There are many people, millions of people who have lived before us who have also struggled from this. And I hate to say this, but as much as we do believe that we are special and that we are different, the millions of people before us also struggle with this, and millions of people, women and men, posting explicit pictures of themselves, on the internet with millions of views and follows. People in the comment section, these grown adults or even children that will just feed this person's content of being sexual. And I think it's a shame that now some of the even the most like top grossing like companies, I believe OnlyFans is one of them. It's something that still is primarily adult content. And the crazy thing about OnlyFans, if I'm going to be specific about this company, is that I believe that a couple years ago they tried to stop the amount of adult content surfacing on the website, on the app, to be seen as like an alternative to like Instagram or TikTok. And yet look what they become now. There are like these broken people, divorced men and women, and I'm not throwing any shade at them, but there are people that are broken, people of all ages, people that could be like just like me, when I started realizing about adult content, 8, 10, 15 years old, these people's brains are still developing. They'll be finding these things without any parental guidance and content blockers, and this will destroy their lives. And all you have to do is merely put in someone's credit card information, and then boom, you can touch yourself while looking at these people who are making millions off your suffering and loneliness. I think it's so fucked up that our society has become like this, and I understand that many people want to have good lives and they'll be doing anything they can, but for people to be using their body, and this issue has become so explicit and so worldwide that now it's just become the norm. And I think that's really fucked up that all of us have to go through this shit. And now the generations after us may also, because everyone's starting to give up. Many of the parents now are starting to just give up on their children. They let their children live on the internet and grow up on the internet. They live more in their heads on the phone than they live with the actual people, like their mom and their father. And I know this video has been quite negative, but I just wanted to make this video because I thought it was a pressing issue that genuinely needs to be talked about more. And many people, I understand, I myself, are embarrassed to talk about this because it's such a personal thing that we don't want to be judged. But I think at some point humanity needs to step up and realize that the younger generation is going to be the future, and that we need to help them. We need to help ourselves. It doesn't, it genuinely doesn't matter what age you are, what gender you are, where are you from. Lust is an issue that all of us have suffered from and continue to suffer from, and many may say that they have the secrets to stop it. But if they did, nobody would be doing this right now. Nobody would be suffering. Nobody would be alone. Nobody would be doing these destructive activities such as attacking people or, destroying buildings or murdering CEOs such as United Healthcare. And I think it's a fucking shame that all of us have to go through this shit. Thank you for watching.